You ever have a childhood defined by darkness, literally? For 12 years, my world was a concrete box, lit only by a single bare bulb and the faint sliver of light that crept under a heavy, bolted door. From the age of 6 to 18, I lived in the basement of the house I should have been inheriting, while upstairs, my stepmother, Eleanor, and her 2 children, enjoyed the extravagant life my dead mother's fortune paid for. They didn't just neglect me, they intentionally erased me. I was fed 1 meal a day, usually stale bread and water, and forced to complete ridiculous, punitive chores like organizing Eleanor's overflowing collection of taxidermied birds or transcribing religious sermons by hand, all while hearing the distant, muffled sounds of laughter, pool parties, and the clinking of champagne glasses just 30 feet above my head. I was a ghost in my own home, a dirty secret locked away so Eleanor could spend the $32 million inheritance my brilliant, loving mother had left me. The day I finally turned 18 and the terms of my mother's trust, terms Eleanor never knew about, kicked in, I didn't just walk out. I used the sudden, colossal financial power I held to not just expose the unspeakable abuse, but to systematically tear down every single pillar of the luxurious, fraudulent life Eleanor had built on my suffering. The look on her face when she realized the quiet, sickly boy she starved in the basement was now the sole owner of everything she cherished was the first moment of true sunlight I had felt in 12 years. Tell me, if you were starved, tortured, and stolen from for 12 years by the people who should have protected you, would you be satisfied with simply exposing them, or would you use your newfound, absolute financial power to destroy them utterly? Was I too cruel, or was my revenge perfectly justified? To understand the magnitude of the betrayal, you have to know who my mother, Clara, was. She wasn't just wealthy, she was a genius. Clara was a highly successful tech entrepreneur who patented a foundational piece of network security software back in the early 90s, long before cyber security was mainstream. She was kind, fiercely protective, and deeply intelligent. My father, Robert, was a handsome, charming, but ultimately shallow man who worked for my mother's company in a minor capacity. When I was 5, my mother was diagnosed with a rapidly aggressive form of cancer. She knew she didn't have much time. Before she died, she established an ironclad trust. The bulk of her estate, $32 million in patents, stocks, and real estate, was transferred into the trust with me, Daniel, as the sole beneficiary. Crucially, she designated her longtime business partner, Mr. Hayes, as the sole trustee, with the explicit instruction that the full estate would transfer to me, fully and without conditions, on my 18th birthday. The terms also stated that until that date, the trust would pay a generous annual stipend enough to maintain a comfortable, upper-middle-class life to my father for my care and maintenance, contingent on my stable upbringing and education. My mother, knowing my father's weak nature, set up the trustee system as a safeguard, but even she couldn't foresee the depth of the depravity to come. My mother died a year later. My father married Eleanor 6 months after that. Eleanor was the quintessential gold digger, beautiful, icy, and utterly ruthless. She brought her 2 children, Marcus and Jessica, who were slightly older than me. The moment the wedding ring was on her finger, the facade dropped. My father, weak and easily manipulated, was completely under her thumb. The first year, the neglect was subtle. I was moved from my sunny room to a small, dusty guest room. Then came the misbehavior. A spilled glass of juice, a misplaced toy, any minor infraction was seized upon by Eleanor as evidence of my unruly nature. Eleanor quickly realized that Mr. Hayes, trustee, only checked in once a year and only asked my father if Daniel was doing well. Robert, paralyzed by Eleanor's control and happy to be free of the responsibility of raising me, simply lied. Eleanor saw her opportunity. When I was 6, after I dared to tell her that my mother always let me eat dinner with the family, she declared I needed rehabilitation. My father stood silently by the basement door, watching Eleanor drag me down the steep, concrete stairs. The basement wasn't a finished rec room. It was a damp, cold cellar, accessible only through a heavy wooden door in the garage, which Eleanor bolted from the outside. My entire existence was confined to a 20 by 10-foot space. My room was a thin cot next to the furnace. There was a rusted laundry sink for washing and a portable toilet. Eleanor's goal wasn't just to punish me. It was to erase me so she could claim the stipend and live the life she felt entitled to. She told Marcus and Jessica I had been sent away to a strict military boarding school, and my father confirmed the lie to anyone who asked. The abuse wasn't physical in the traditional sense, but psychological and emotional. Starvation. I was intentionally kept illiterate. Eleanor would confiscate any books, forcing me to only read religious sermons, which she thought would break my spirit. She would bring me one tray of food late at night, just enough to keep me alive and sickly, and she would never speak a single kind word. She would often leave me alone for days, during which the silence was broken only by the muffled sounds of their opulent life, the splash of the pool in summer, the boom of a party speaker, or the high-pitched, spoiled laughter of Marcus and Jessica. I listened, cataloging every moment of the life stolen from me. The psychological isolation was crushing, but it also became my strength. Alone in the darkness, I taught myself math by counting the cracks in the ceiling, and I mentally planned every step of my escape and, eventually, my revenge. The closest I ever came to giving up was around age 12. I was severely malnourished. The lack of stimulation was driving me insane, and I felt completely forgotten. But then I found the ledger. Eleanor had me doing these ridiculous chores, and one day I was tasked with cleaning out an old, forgotten trunk of my mother's that Eleanor had banished to the corner of the basement. Taped inside the lid was a small, water-damaged notebook, my mother's private financial ledger. It wasn't the trust document, but it had the name of the bank, the trust number, and the full original valuation, $32,480,000. It also detailed the annual stipend paid to my father for my upkeep. I realized then that my suffering wasn't for nothing, it was for $32 million. This knowledge became the fire that kept me alive. Every time I was given stale bread, I remembered the exact, astronomical sum Eleanor was stealing. I promised myself I would survive to claim every penny and make her pay for every crumb. My 18th birthday was a Tuesday. Mr. Hayes, the trustee, had failed to check on me for years, relying entirely on my father's lies. He was merely waiting for the system to process the transfer. I knew he was the only external point of contact. Using a rusty nail and years of desperate, calculated effort, I managed to unbolt the window in the cellar bathroom, the one area Eleanor never checked because it led to a dense, overgrown patch of bushes. I squeezed out just after midnight on the day of my 18th birthday. I was gaunt, weak, and dressed in rags, but I was free. I walked for hours until I reached the first main road, where I hitchhiked to a nearby city. My first act was not to call the police about the abuse. I knew the burden of proof would be astronomical, but to call Mr. Hayes's office number, which I had memorized from the ledger. When he finally answered the phone the next morning, I introduced myself not as the boy he thought was at boarding school, but as Daniel, the legal beneficiary of the Clara Ashton Trust, telling him, "The trust matures today. I am currently not in my legal guardian's care, and I need access to the funds immediately before they notice I'm gone." The stunned silence on the other end was priceless. Mr. Hayes suddenly, terrified of his own liability, acted immediately. He verified my identity using the trust documents and the birth date, confirming that the $32 million transfer was legally slated for noon. He arranged for a discreet pickup and took me to a secure hotel. For the next 48 hours, I was immersed in legal and financial reality. The trust, thanks to my mother's wise investments, was now worth $45, $5 million. I had $45 million and the legal, absolute power to control it. The first action I took was not revenge, but self-preservation. I filed a comprehensive report with Child Protective Services detailing the 12 years of abuse with the support of Mr. Hayes. Then, I leveraged the financial instruments. My legal team, now paid for by my own millions, filed 2 immediate, simultaneous legal actions: a civil suit for punitive damages against Robert and Eleanor for 12 years of misappropriated stipend funds and abuse, and a property claim. The trust documents explicitly stated that the house was originally purchased using trust funds and was to revert to the beneficiary upon maturity if the custodial obligations were breached. Eleanor had no idea the house was a ticking financial time bomb, so that's the situation I was in. I was the secret $45 million heir, the boy who survived 12 years of calculated torture and neglect, now standing on the brink of absolute power over the lives of the people who had erased me. I could have simply sued for damages and disappeared into a new, magnificent life, leaving them to their social shame. Or I could use my immense legal and financial arsenal to strike a lethal, decisive blow that would strip them of every comfort, every illusion of wealth, and every piece of status they had stolen from me. Before I tell you the ingenious and complete way I chose to deliver the final act of justice, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have quietly walked away, refusing to be petty, or would you have used the $45 million to orchestrate their total and catastrophic financial ruin? Seriously, let me know what choice you would have made right there. I chose the orchestrated, complete ruin. I wanted the humiliation to be as total as the isolation I endured. My revenge was clinical, delivered not with anger, but with cold, financial precision. Civil suit was important for the public record, but the real power was the *** immediate eviction ***. I had the trust's legal team secure an emergency possession order for the house, citing documented breach of the custodial care contract. 2 days after the funds were transferred to me, I was the legal owner of the house. The day I chose for the final confrontation was a Saturday afternoon, specifically timed during one of their elaborate pool parties, the kind of muffled laughter I used to listen to from the darkness below. I arrived in a convoy, 2 police cars there to ensure the eviction order was followed, a large moving van, and my lawyer, Mr. Hayes, and a camera crew discreetly hired by my legal team to document the eviction, not for public broadcast yet. The pool area was teeming with Eleanor's society friends, all dressed in designer swimwear, holding crystal glasses. Music was blaring, and Marcus and Jessica were lounging poolside, looking impossibly spoiled. The music stopped instantly when the police walked onto the patio. Eleanor, dressed in a shocking pink silk kaftan, stormed over, her face frozen in her usual mask of entitled fury. "What is the meaning of this intrusion? I will call my lawyer," she hissed at the police officer. My lawyer, Mr. Hayes, stepped forward, holding the stack of documents. "Mrs. Harrison, this is a court-ordered immediate possession order. Your property is being seized for breach of contract and failure to uphold the custodial duties of the Daniel Ashton Trust." Eleanor laughed, a high, brittle sound. "The house is in Robert's name. You have no standing. This is harassment." I stepped out from behind the lawyer, no longer the sickly boy, but a gaunt, serious young man in a simple but well-fitting new suit. My voice, surprisingly strong from years of whispering in. Cellar cut through the silence. Actually, Elinor, I do. Elinor's reaction was seismic. Her face went slack as she recognized me. Daniel, you escaped. She choked out, her society friends whispering behind their hands. Escaped? No, Elinor. I corrected her, my eyes never leaving hers. I graduated asterisk. 12 years in your basement, paid for $45 million inheritance. The house, this pool, the cars, all bought with the stipend intended for my education and upkeep. And today, all of it reverts to the rightful owner. Me. I nodded to the moving crew, who immediately began rolling up the expensive furniture, the pool floats, and even the taxidermied birds from the main living area. Marcus and Jessica looked confused, then terrified as the police asked them to collect their personal belongings. The final humiliation was the car. Robert's expensive European sedan was immediately towed away, as it was purchased with stolen stipend funds. Robert, who finally emerged from the house, simply stared at me with a look of utter, pathetic defeat. He had lost his son, his wife, and his entire comfortable life in one afternoon, all because he lacked the courage to say no to Elinor 12 years ago. Elinor stood there, her pink caftan suddenly looking absurd against the backdrop of her vanishing life. Her society friends grabbed their things and fled, desperate to avoid the stench of scandal. She tried one last time to argue, but the officer simply pointed to the bolt marks on the garage door. The same marks I knew better than my own face, which served as physical proof of the abuse. The civil lawsuit, which focused heavily on the basement confinement and the misappropriated funds, became a public sensation. Elinor and Robert were found liable for massive punitive damages, which, coupled with the loss of the house and all their luxury possessions, left them financially destitute. Stipend money they had spent was reclaimed with interest. I used a portion of my $45 million to fund a foundation in my mother's name, dedicated to helping abused children secure legal aid. I adopted a new name, Daniel Ashton, reclaiming my mother's legacy entirely. I bought a magnificent filled home far away, hired a full team, and ironically, filled it with books, thousands of them. I finally started my education, not just in law and finance, but in history, art, and literature. All the things Elinor tried to deny me. I cut all contact with Robert, Elinor, Marcus, and Jessica. The last I heard, Elinor was working minimum wage, completely ostracized by the society she had desperately tried to buy. The victory wasn't the money. It was standing on that sunny patio and watching the life they stole from me crumble, piece by piece, under the weight of my mother's foresight. The silence in my new home is peaceful, not crushing. I was never a ghost. I was just waiting for my inheritance to grant me the voice to speak the truth. Like this video, if you believe Elinor and Robert got the exact, justified karma they deserved. Subscribe for more stories about secret trusts and ultimate revenge, and please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. Do you think my revenge was too harsh, or did they earn every moment of their public ruin? I'll see you all in the next story.